Welcome, everyone. How are you? Oh, I'm sorry. That is so light. I can't even see that. It's the Greek letter P for Christ. It's the abbreviation, so it doesn't take as much room. That's how come people say Xmas. It's not they're saying, let's take the Christ out for Christmas. They're not. It's just Christ gets abbreviated with CH, the Greek letter for CH, which is P. Christ against culture. I should write that more darkly, like it was suggested earlier. Now it's going to be a double. Difference that makes when I walk away from it.
That's why I was like,
thanks for the heads up. Man. Let's pray and we'll be underway. Father in heaven, once again, what it means to have the dimension in our lives of spirituality. We pray that how that develops, how we exercise it will be according to how you created us, collectively and individually. In Jesus' name. Announcement from Jose.
So, if you guys, if you guys miss class and there's a quiz and you have like an actual excuse, you guys need to contact me. Because, for example, it's been a week since quiz number 2 and like 4 days since quiz number 3. I'm handing them back now so nobody can take them after this, but you guys need to contact me if you have an actual excuse, that way you can take the quiz. Because it's not my job to track it out and you take the quiz. Yeah.
He's excited.
No, actually,
what did he say?
You couldn't tell?
I finished all the quizzes. I'm not excited.
You're the man.
But I was just wondering because I was trying to check the discussion tab for the questions, but it seems like it's locked yesterday.
True.
It has been locked since October 25th at around 9 p.m. something.
Oh, will you take a look at that?
Yeah.
Let's see if it has an end date on it. Maybe it's a default or something that we just need to set. I'm sorry. Last time we spoke about the second of 3 modules or items or parts to a rounded, although certainly not closed, but at least something that gives each dimension to a spiritual path that if you wanted, you could simply take those 3 and you could start practicing those 3 just right out of the box. You may be able to develop something, or you may find something that is more resonant with your spirituality, with the tradition you've been raised with. But these 3 are something that I am actually relatively certain is compatible with a Seventh-day Adventist church, even by the most traditional or orthodox or conservative interpretation. These 3 have passed every test I know, and I have consulted over the years with a wide variety of Seventh-day Adventist types, including some of the most conservative Adventists that I know. And this has been something that conservative Adventist churches, I mean really conservative Adventist churches, have, when they heard of it, asked me to come like to a church retreat and present in their church. And it has been received without, oh, okay, that's New Age stuff. Oh, okay, now you're being Catholic, or you're being Buddhist, or you're being somehow icky in our tradition. I've never run into that. It is drawn from the Bible and the Spirit of prophecy, and I believe that it is compatible both with the strictest, narrowest definition of Seventh-day Adventist spirituality and with the practices and teachings of Jesus as we have them in the Gospels. Now, recall that I said not everything that we see Jesus practicing in the Gospels is something that would be okay with many Seventh-day Adventists, with traditional Seventh-day Adventists. It would not be okay even within Christianity, some of what Jesus practiced. And that might be a good thing. Some of the things he practiced might, you'd have to be from his culture in order for them to be compatible with following him today. That's possible. It's a good argument. We're going to look at why there is a difference between what seems okay to some Adventists or to some Christians. Those are not the same group. Adventism is a subset of Christianity, although I'll say this much. There are some very historic Seventh-day Adventists, you ready for this, that are not Christians. Some of the early Seventh-day Adventists, some of the pioneers in Seventh-day Adventism, did not actually believe that Jesus was God. That was actually up for grabs in Adventism. So if you draw circles, you can't put the whole circle of what people have or still do call Seventh-day Adventism within what is actually defined as Christianity. Because if you don't believe that Jesus was God, you're not a Christian. It's just a definition, is all it is. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It's just a term that has a definition, and that doesn't fit it. Now, almost every Seventh-day Adventist is and has been a Christian. But not all Christianity and not all Seventh-day Adventism is actually lined up with everything that in the Gospels we see that Jesus taught and practiced. In fact, some of the things that Jesus taught, almost no Seventh-day Adventists and almost no Christians would be willing to do those things. They would consider it insanity. And even if they thought it was a good idea, they still wouldn't do it and they don't want their kids doing it. For instance, giving everything you have to the poor. I think most Seventh-day Adventists, if their kids did that at just the right time in their kids' lives, like just before retirement, and their parents are old, and the kids are sort of my age, and the kids then say, we're going to take everything. We're going to take our whole 401k and our 503b from that other job, and we're going to take our house and everything, we're going to turn into cash, we're going to give it to Habitat for Humanity. And we're going to just rent a little studio apartment, and we're just going to live in an old, a tiny RV that we found, and see where they'll let us put it in the church parking lot. I mean, they would take issue with that, most of them. I think even most of our pastors would say, let's talk this over. These are different times, you know. So we are faced, however, with a fellowship in Seventh-day Adventism that has some people that see things very, very differently than other people within our fellowship. Some whole congregations are sort of a certain flavor, and others are sort of a certain flavor. This is no secret to you. If you have had, if you're Seventh-day Adventist and you've gone to more than one Seventh-day Adventist church, if you come from what we consider a liberal, contemporary Seventh-day Adventist church, and then you go home on Sabbath from boarding school or from PUC with your roommate or your friend or whoever, and they are from a really conservative church, you're going to go to church and you're going to be going, I'm not sure what to do. I'm not sure what. You should go home with their parents and it's Sabbath and you're going, I need to be careful, and I don't even know what to be careful of. Just be careful. Because I know I'm going to do something that's going to offend folk. Some of you have been instructed by your parents because you are more progressive or more liberal or more open or more contemporary or however you want to think of it. You've been instructed things such as, please do not be a stumbling block. As Paul says, it's important to not be a stumbling block for people that are weaker in faith. So you have probably, some of you from conservative Adventist homes, although almost never, I have almost never heard this from conservatives. It's always, it's go ahead and be a stumbling block from conservatives. Very often, you should be a stumbling block because they're doing wrong and we should confront them with it. That's more common in that mindset. But nevertheless, once in a while, you'll hear somebody say, well, we do it this way, but we need to be careful not to create a stumbling block with it. And tell me honestly if you've heard many conservatives say that. If you're conservative, everyone needs to do it your way when you're there so you don't get offended. See, if I'm wrong, you correct me. But that dynamic plays out a lot. It also plays out politically. Check that. Because almost by definition, a liberal is somebody who wants to have everyone do whatever they choose. You leave it to each person, and a conservative is a certain psychology, not just a theological or political position, but a certain psychology that wants to demand that everybody do it the same way that they do it. So, some of you, on either side, have had your parents say things like, okay, this is how we do, but keep in mind that some people do differently, so let's be careful not to offend anybody. You keep that at home. Don't haul that out and help everyone to understand what you're going to do this afternoon when you're at church, if you're going to go to the water slide or whatever it is. You've heard that, some of you. It is not because some people are legitimately worshiping God and other people are not legitimately worshiping God. Although it is true, but that's not what causes these different ways of doing spirituality. People are different. People's cultures are different. People's families are different. People's psychology is different than one another. And part of the Seventh-day Adventist spiritual program, this is not one of the three, but it's still important. Part of the Seventh-day Adventist spiritual program and the Christian program and the program that Jesus taught and modeled is finding ways to live together in actual Christian love, regardless. I put five strands of Christian spirituality that has run through the Christian community for centuries, and it also runs through the Seventh-day Adventist community. These are ways of seeing what it is that it means when you think spirituality, and how do we relate to spirituality in the actual world that we live in. The first one is Christ against culture. That is how some people are walking the Christianity path of spirituality is to envision that it's Christ against this culture of evil. If I came in today and said, "Oh, it's Halloween, so trick-or-treating," there's people immediately who say, "We don't do Halloween, we have a harvest party." Do not do that. That is Satan's day. Don't do it. And some of you, when I put that on, stiffened up. Others thought it was funny, and others are like, "I should have gone to Southern." I want to encourage you wherever you find yourself, whether it's in or out of Seventh-day Adventism, whether you are which flavor or another of Seventh-day Adventist, or whether you just have no concern at all, but you need the credits of this class fit your schedule. I don't care wherever it is. I want you to consider how you can be a champion human being in relation to other human beings, wherever they find themselves and wherever you find yourself. How you can be a champion Christian. How you can be a champion Seventh-day Adventist if you are a Seventh-day Adventist, or a champion whatever you are, instead of the donkey's back end kind of a person. Because there's a lot of people who, in the name of their spirituality, have taken it upon themselves, and still today, because of their religion and spirituality, take it upon themselves to kill you. Not just to insult you or to get all indignant, but to kill you if you think or practice differently. In fact, some of them, you can even believe it the same as they do, but you're just not as good at it, and so you make a mistake, and they want you dead. It's that serious. In our own church, I have seen countless times where people create campaigns to destroy somebody's ministry career because they disagree with them. And that doesn't just mean because they're not conservative enough. I have seen it go the other direction, where people are liberal and want all the conservatives out of the Congress. And so they destroy what somebody went to school for 10 years, including their internship, to prepare for. Some of you are theology majors, and you plan a career in ministry. Some of you are religion majors, and you plan a career in teaching religion and Bible. No matter who you are, there's a place that we can assign you in Adventism where you would fail and never get another job. And your degree would be pretty close to useless. You could be at a fast food place collecting the straw papers that people drop down behind the service counter. Overnight, if you step wrong, and it doesn't matter whether you're super conservative or super liberal. In fact, if you were a Catholic or an Anglican, the same could be true. I could make the same statement in that kind of a college or seminary for them. Because it's the way people are. Adventists have not cornered the market. If you're thinking of leaving Adventism and going and finding something maybe more mature where people aren't so hung up, I'll go try this group or I'll go try that group. Those same people, whichever ones you're wishing weren't here, they're there. Even if religion isn't your thing. Okay, I get my group thing on by going to the dojo. I'll just, when I leave school, I still need some fellowship. I'm in a strange city. I'll do roll with the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu types. Guaranteed. Every dojo has those kind of people. The full spectrum, the whole potluck of personalities, is in every dojo. If, oh, hey, I'll go at lunch on Tuesdays to the Toastmasters group that meets in the conference room at the credit union. It's in the Toastmasters group, believe it or not. You have to be careful that you do your table talks the same way that so-and-so says, or else they ding you on your score sheet every time, and then they talk about you behind your back, and they try to keep you from getting speaking appointments because you don't believe it like they believe it. Certain technique, you're doing it wrong. It's there. And in the next week, you should be able to see without trying that it's in our country. It's just like the political process. You should be able to see it on Facebook. You're not going to see me on Facebook in the next week. I can't. I don't. I'm not out for that. And I don't want to hear it. I don't want people's cantankerousness. I don't have time for that. It's just the intensity raises too much up for me at this point. I'm going to just duck out for a couple of weeks, I think. Christ against culture is, you are seeing Christ against culture from some people in their in-your-face approach to festivals and holidays that have their roots in some other form of Christianity or some other form of spirituality. Halloween is just one. You drop off a good percent, maybe a third of the Adventists or more in our country are like, of course my kids aren't even trick or treating. That's the devil's thing, and we're not in for that. You get fewer people who duck out on Christmas, but it happens that we don't have a tree. Our kids are going to sit and be pious while everybody's having Christmas. Or at least something else, but it won't be with red and green. We're going to be careful not to celebrate that. This Christ against culture has an honest history. Sometimes it doesn't come about just because people want to be controversial or against things. It didn't start out that way in every case. Sometimes it's because the culture declared war on them when they had no animosity whatsoever. Some cultures just don't have time for people's spiritualities if they differ from the spirituality that's traditional in that culture. So Christianity confronted cultures early that weren't Christian. And the cultures were immediately threatened and sought to literally kill the Christians. So, in many cases, certain strands of that sort of were at war with the culture, yes, but they didn't start out making the attack. They were attacked first. Christ of culture. There's a sense in which all of us that take the name of Christ, or that are sent Adventists even, have taken parts of culture and mistook it for the way Christ was, because we all have an image of Christ and of God inside of us that looks remarkably like us. The expression is tired, but I'll use it again. And it's worth keeping in mind, even if it's becoming a cliche. It has been said that in the beginning, God created man in his own image, and man has been returning the favor ever since. Nearly everybody's God, probably everybody's God in here, is their own image with comic book superhero superpowers. Coincidentally, hating the same stuff and the same people. Now, that's not a wholesome God to worship. Somehow, spirituality that's constructive should be a path away from that evil. The Christ of culture is one that when you hear somebody preaching Christ and interpreting the stories in the Gospels, talking about how the church needs to be, the church becomes an enforcer of their own secular culture. If you go to church and you learn how to succeed as an American and how to be a part of the rat race and have a good, respectable career, and they help you know what's the Christian way to vote, and they let you know how you need to be an upright citizen with your lawn mowed just right and not making any trouble for the government and all of that. Just go along with it and be a polite, upright citizen. Gives us a very good chance that you're coming up in a spirituality tradition that could be described as the Christ of culture, of your culture. And I'm here to tell you, that's tricky. It's fine if you want to do that, but please understand that you're doing it. Don't do it accidentally, so that you're a clown to people who can see it.
Just for clarification, this would mean that you're like putting your own ideals into your religion?
You're shaping your religion to validate the things that mean success in your culture. If you be a good Christian, you'll be saving money at the right, you'll be managing to make, for every year old you are a couple $1,000s times that age as you move up. You're on the program to be the model citizen of your culture, whatever it is. Christ above culture, where it just has nothing to do with it. It's just it transcends. Jesus is not involved in that kind of thing, and your spirituality and your Christianity doesn't meddle in it at all. It's another matter completely. Not only do you not confront other people with their cultural practices, but it doesn't confront you with your cultural practices. You kind of go and you go to church and you take care of your business at church. You take care of that spiritual box, and that's good. It's important. It's a good add-on. You need that aspect to your life, and then you go and you spend your week, like everyone else, trying to succeed at things that require that you defeat someone else in order for you to succeed. And you kind of practice whatever kind of morality, whether it has anything to do with Jesus. You sleep with whoever you want to. And if you ever do marry, then that's fine as long as it's still interesting. And then when it's not, you just put that person off and say, hey, it's been nice, and you get someone else, and you do that as many times as you want. And there's no effect on your lifestyle at all. But when you go to church, it's all good. That you need that too. That's Jesus is not even, it doesn't even have anything to do with it. That's not my spirituality isn't even involved with the culture I live in. I'm part of that culture, and Jesus just doesn't meddle with it. He doesn't care about that stuff. Jesus and culture in paradox. There's a sort of notion that if somebody points out something that's ridiculously opposed in what Jesus says, to say the way that your culture, even that claims to be a religious culture, even your Adventist culture, if it does things a certain way, and you say, yeah, but Jesus said this, and you say, yes, the Holy Spirit uses that paradox to teach us, yes, they're both right, and can you feel the tension? Can you feel the theological tension? They're kind of celebrate the tension. It's a piece of cake. It's very easy to look at anybody's religion or spirituality and find things that are in incredible paradox with their ideals or with their founder of their system, in our case with Jesus, in Seventh-day Adventism, both with Jesus and with the early Adventists, including Ellen White. It's a piece of cake to find something. Yeah, feel the tension there. I mean, it really draws us to have to consider those things, and that's the teaching moment. There's a lot of sort of woo-woo that goes around with trying to keep Christ in paradox with culture. And Jesus, the transformer of culture. There's people who believe that our context, our secular culture, needs to be either changed like legislatively or with forcing practices, sort of a militant way to look at it. There's another way to do number 5, and that's when you say we're the salt. You know, the Holy Spirit working through us blends us, and we bring out the God flavors in our secular world by mixing right on in. There's this element of seasoning it with God, and that can transform the culture into God's kingdom on earth, make it more like He would have it. Or some people regard that as their role in the church. They picture the church culture as having gotten worldly, and so they're going there, carrying with them their relationship with Jesus, and they're going to transform the church into what it ought to be because they don't think that it is. So when we say culture, we could be talking about the broader Christian culture. We could be talking about the culture in Seventh-day Adventism, the culture like here at your school, or the culture in your office when you're working. We could be talking about the secular culture here in the United States and the Western world or on Earth. So those are things to kind of say what. They're not the only way to look at it either. They're just one taxonomy. You could probably come up with some categories that aren't represented well there, or you could come up with a way to say it with 2 or 3 instead. I mean, it's simple to say liberal and conservative. That's one way. Here is an expansive way. You could say it. You could come up with 20 categories if you just are more specific in what, like, take one and say, like I did with the transformer of culture. One could be sort of a militantly transforming it, and the other could be sort of the salt blending in to bring out the God flavors in the world. And then we could say, okay, well, that gives us 6, and you could just keep expanding. So you're going to hear a lot of this kind of stuff, and people are going to be saying boo and dressing like vampires and devils and imps and political candidates and farm animals and all kinds of silliness today. How you relate to it partly is a matter of whatever etiquette you've practiced, and how you relate to it on the inside is going to be a good barometer for you, for some of you, of where you fall in some taxonomy such as that. But I want to give you number 3 of the 3-strand spiritual practice, sort of a bouquet of spiritual practice. The 3 fingers pointing, this is the 3rd finger pointing. Okay? We spoke of first being in sort of bizarre fellowship with other people, where you look at them in a way that's unusual for human beings to look at each other, knowing some of that stuff inside that has a tendency to foster compassion and sympathy and affection for that person. And then acknowledging, I know those things about you. And then saying, without moving your lips, without letting them even know with any visible cues, I love you. Just looking and actually loving. So that was one. Number 2 was to set about the challenge of transforming your actual conscious experience, your actual aware, waking conscious experience, to foster the habit and work toward never not doing that. Where instead of thinking with having a conversation with yourself, your very aware mental activity is always a prayer. It's always consciously, is always with your awareness, a conversation with your Creator. That was number 2. And that's an interesting thing. You can do something like put a little sticky note on your mirror or on your watch, or on, have a thing that comes up on your phone and vibrates and it reminds you, are you doing that thing? Or whatever it is. Little reminders and you can switch them up, and you can have a friend who's going to remind you, and you work on it together so that you say, how's it going? You can journal about it, whatever. There's a whole, you could focus on that, and your whole life of spirituality could be that. The third one, though, is a real ridiculous commitment. It's a really ridiculous commitment. You know how our memories work. You ever get an earworm, you think of some stupid idiot song that you wish you could unthink of, and it imposes itself, You're driving, or you're doing dishes, or you're folding clothes, or you're trying to study, and then you got this song, you go, I don't even like that song, get out, get out, get out. You don't even want it in. You overheard it or something, or there's some song that you've heard that people keep listening to, and it's disgusting to you, or you just hate it, and it runs. And you don't even want it to run. And right now, if we would all just see how much lyrics we have in our head. I mean, you could actually recite lyrics for many of you for hundreds, if not thousands, of songs. And in some cases, with every verse. You could. You've memorized a whole bunch of things in your life. You have a bunch of data. You know what your room number is. You might know what your cell phone number is. You probably do. You know your social security number. You know numbers for your family. You know lots of facts. You know lots of geography facts with the names of countries. If I asked you what country is right above the United States on the map or right below the United States on the map, you probably would know that. If you're not from the United States, you know the name of the countries that border, You know the names of most of the states. You know what state you're in. You can picture on the map where perhaps thousands of places are. You know about the names of jillions of world leaders. You know the names of a bunch of actors, all the movies and TV programs you've seen. I could ask you, some of you, what happened on an episode of Friends, and you can tell me what happened. Or Cheers, or whatever you did a blitz on and watched the whole thing over a weekend or something off of Netflix. Binge on stuff like that. I could ask you a jillion things about certain movies. I could ask you, you play certain sports. You understand how many strikes it takes to make you be out when you're up to bat, and how many outs there is when each side goes up to bat in each inning. You know how many innings there are. You know which inning you take a little break and have a little stretch, right? You know so many facts that if we were to write them out word for word, how large of a book would it take? And some of that stuff that's in your mind that you know about is crap. You wish it wasn't even there. If you could get it out, you get it out, and you can't. So with that as perspective, I'm going to suggest to you something really bizarre. The things that are in your memory are in your memory. And they get drawn upon not just like for quizzes and final exams and take the MCAT. They get drawn upon because that's the information that you have to form your values, to figure out answers that seem to just come to you, to make your automatic responses to things. when you just behave a certain way, that whole database that you put in is affecting it. If you listen to music and watch movies that show insensitive ways to behave to other people, then you would be likely to be influenced subtly, but definitely, to be more that kind of person. By beholding, we do become changed. You know? And whatsoever things are true and pure and lovely, think on those things. Is that right? Whatsoever things are of good report. You like that one, don't you? You brought that one up. Yes.
Philippians 4:8.
Philippians 4. What is the best material in the world that could be in your mind? The best, absolutely no competition material. I'm going to propose that in a Christian value system, that in the value system of a true follower of Christ, that in the value system of a real honest heart of Seventh-day Adventists, I'm going to suggest that there are 4 things that have no competition for being hands down, 1,000 times the next runner-up, the most important thing in your mind. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So here's the ridiculous spiritual practice, and I dare you to do it. I dare you. I don't care by what means. You figure that out. You know how your brain works better. Ready for this? Word for word. From the first word of each book to the last word of each book, memorize it cold and hard. Flat out, if somebody says, what does Matthew 12:3 say? You could say it just like that, and you know where the commas and semicolons go. If you did that, first of all, it would take some time. Sometime every week you have to be working on it. And I'll promise you, I'm here to tell you that if you go a few months and drop off your practice, when you come back to it, it'll be kind of close to before you started. It takes years of doing it and redoing it until you know it as well as you know your own Social Security number. But think about what's happening during that time to your mind. My way is, I'll take a verse, and I sit down, I've made this checkerboard sort of thing with little blocks that are just intersecting borders that are square, tiny ones, that have 100 of them side by side on a line, and then it just keeps going down so that on a page there's just thousands of these little blocks. And I have a little line, and I'll write the verse. And I sit there and start out by just saying the whole verse while reading on flashcards. Reference on one side, verse on the next. And I'll read it, and I'll read it, read it, read it. Every time I read it, I shade in one of those blocks. So I read it, shade in the block, read it, shade in the block, read it, shade in the block, read it, shade in the block. Keep going until I don't need the card. And I have to try, I just keep reading it. You read it 100 times, it'll run itself eventually. And then I can keep saying it while I do other things. It'll just keep going. I keep that one in there for the whole day. And then I'll put 2 verses together and say them as one unit until they run themselves. And I'll do it until I've said that block 1,000 times. And then it runs itself. Then it just imposes itself. And I dream about it.
Just curious, what translation do you use?
I simply use the King James because I started with it. Once I get a block taken care of, I have looked at the Greek also, so I know what the King James is doing. I've looked at other translations, but I just memorized it in the King James. Universality, and it's like the versions keep changing. That's just a snapshot version for me. So I like it. I'm used to it. But you can pick whatever one, but not a paraphrase.
Right.
Now, why memorize something that's twisted up from one angle to the other? So there's your three.
So you said first word of each verse.
Every word. Every word of every verse. Memorized flat out. But you know what? You've memorized that many psalm lyrics, and some of them are nasty. You've got that many words in your head already from crap. Memorizing the
No, I just want to go this way. I really don't like that song. She's like,
yes, I see it.
I'm like, no, it's really not. It has horrible meanings that are meant to be.
Friday.
Those basically just do